So first of all, I would like to give a very warm welcome to Vesna, Specti Channel, is that right? Yep, to Batemans Bay Library this afternoon for a book launch of her first book called, An Unexpected Life. It's a compilation of 12 migrant women's life stories, so I'm really interested to hear what Vesna has to say this afternoon. I would like to pay my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this event takes place this afternoon, the Walbunja people of the Yuin Nation, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge their ongoing connection to the lands and waters. So all around everyone. An Unexpected Life presents the remarkable journeys of 12 migrant women who embarked on a courageous path to Australia as adults, each confronting formidable challenges along the way. Those women. So she'll be speaking to us this afternoon, and I'd like you to offer a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Janelle. So, as you've heard, I've written this book about 12 women, and I'm one of those. So myself and 11 people, women, who migrated to Australia as adults. This is an interesting compilation of stories. Can you hear me? Yeah. An interesting compilation of stories, almost an anthology of women's migration. Although most of us came here as part of a family, or with a partner, or with a child, so not really alone. And I've said most of us. There are many challenges that we face, and it's really interesting to see how people from different parts of the globe, of the world, face similar challenges in a different way, or how they deal with many different challenges almost in the same way. And it is all about emotions, it's about growing up as a person, although we were already grown-ups in our late 20s or 30s, how we faced those challenges, how we decided to deal with them, the way we decided to deal with our families, with the background that we left behind, and all the new things that we faced when we came here. Just for my own information, who is the first generation arrival to Australia here? Put your hand up. And 2 people. And the second generation? More? Yes. It's remarkable how people deal with adversity when they're put in a situation that they have to deal with that. This morning I've heard something that was really, it just stuck in my mind. It says it was last night at a poetry evening in Canberra, and there was a poet that said, sometimes we break, sometimes we are broken. Isn't that interesting? And I just thought that's a lovely sentence, I want to use it. So before I go into the book itself, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in then Yugoslavia. It is now a separate country, that part where I was born, and my husband Miloš is Serbia. In the book we have a few people from former Yugoslavia, from North Macedonia, from Bosnia, and from Serbia. So the 3 of us came from that region, or come from that region, but there are also people from Peru, Chile, Africa, Ghana, the Middle East, Afghanistan, there are people from Romania. So interesting backgrounds. And if you are interested in politics, you will find some parts of that as well. Thinking about Chile and what was happening around the 60s and early 70s, you would hear that in Edith's story. what was happening under Ceausescu in Romania. That's also interesting, and how people grew into beautiful, beautiful individuals, although they felt repressed, and how they dealt with that as little kids, and grew into really strong women. People who have escaped for financial reasons, not escaped, but wanted a better life. So they left something that was reasonably comfortable. For example, my friend in Macedonia, from Macedonia, she led a pretty comfortable life, but wanted something different. So she took her daughter under her wing and left the country and came here on her own. Really, really interesting details and depictions of beauty, of human strength. So going back to me, I finished school in Serbia, finished university, started working, got two kids, got married, got the kids. Everything was happening in order. And then Australia happened. I came to visit with the whole family. We came to visit my grandmother, who really always wanted us to come, someone to come. She said, this is heaven, you need to come and see. So we came to heaven. And while we were here on a visit for 3 months, in 1990, Yugoslavia war started. And we did go back, face the terrible situation that started happening over there, and decided to come back. And that's how our life in Australia started. Within those first few couple of months, I met my first friend that I talk about in the book. She was from Afghanistan. We knew no English. I spoke perfect Serbian, of course. I spoke a little bit of Hungarian because my mother was Hungarian. And learned German in school for 12 years. And I was thinking, oh my God, what's happening? I need to learn yet another language. And I did. So when I started, and thanks this country, thank you Australia, for in 1990 it was completely free, easy to enter, and it was called an on-arrival course. So in that on-arrival course, I met Sarah Khalidi from Afghanistan. While I wasn't a refugee per se, she was a real refugee from Afghanistan. They left, went to Pakistan, went through India, came to also with 2 small kids, approximately the same age, came to Australia, came to Canberra. She was a special person. She is a special person in my life. And I talk about our friendship from that angle. And in her story, she recalls something that I didn't remember. She said that once, and we couldn't talk because we didn't know English. That's, if anyone is wondering, that was on arrival. So we were talking with our hands, and we would smile and, just nod and explain. She was breastfeeding, I think, her younger one, daughter, and I was breastfeeding mine in between the classes, and we didn't know how to explain what we needed and this and that. Anyway, later on, we started learning and all of that, stayed in touch. Our kids became really, really good friends and are friends now. And she writes in her story, she says, do you remember when you once, we met in a corridor, I was going from my baby back to the class, and you were going towards to pick up your baby, and you just stood there and started crying and hugged me, and you were saying, I don't even know how she explained it, you need to read the story, but she remembered clearly. And I'm not a person that really cries easily, and I didn't remember that. But she said, I started loving you when you did that because you showed your human side. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. That's when you see someone who you really don't know, and they open up to you in whichever language, human language, that stays with you. And she says that stayed with her that moment. And that was something that just brought us together. So the whole story is about, I'm starting with some explanations, what I just said about myself. And that's a really sort of 2 or 3 pages chapter. And then I introduce Sarah. And then goes Sarah's story. Then I introduced the next person that I met, which was Romain, and what it meant to me to meet Romain from Sri Lanka. Then comes Romain's story. Then again I got a little introduction, because people ask me, how did you choose those 11 women? I chose them from my angle, because they made a difference in my life. And I also hope and believe that our meeting made some change to the better. I'm hoping, and I'm told it was like that in their lives. And it's not all about, it's not only about us as individuals, although that's the focus, because that was the idea behind the book. It is about our families. It is about our workplaces. It is about and I don't want to go into I don't want to drive your thoughts on any negative sides, but there was bullying at work. There was laughter behind our backs, how we say things, how we talk, walk, and joke. There are different feeling and environments when you have a multicultural group of people, as I believe we have here, because there are experiences that bring us together, and they are different. It is a different atmosphere when you have monogamous, ethnically monogamous environment. And I saw that back in Serbia. I remembered how sometimes when my mom would say a word with an accent, people around us would laugh, and I didn't give it any, I wouldn't think about it. I didn't think it was anything, and I don't think it was really bad. But when I came here, when I realized that that's the thing that was happening to me, then I felt, so you need to be in someone's shoes to actually feel how they felt at that very moment. In our stories, we talk about our private lives as well. There were families that fell apart. There were children that were not born. There were children that were born with health issues and problems, and when you don't know the language, it's not 3 times, but 100 times bigger challenge. All of those stories, women opened up fully. The process that we went through in this was that I suggested this project. We called it a project later on, our project, and explained what I wanted to achieve and why it was important for me. And they said, it's going to be important for me as well. I want to do it. Only a couple of women that I approached said no. One had a terminal ill husband at that time, and she wasn't able to join. And the other one just moved from Canberra and was following her academic career and wasn't in a situation. But everyone else said yes, and it was really very, I was genuinely impressed and thankful and grateful for that. So as they were in the project, we all said, okay, you say as much, every one of us can say as much as we want to say and share. And we did. So you can laugh and you can cry, but through reading these stories. I recorded everything on Zoom, or if they were not in Canberra, but most of us were in Canberra. We would get together, talk, and then I transcribed it just in a few sentences to tell you how the process went. The transcription was very raw. There were a lot of R's and R's, and thinking and forgetting, and oh, did I tell you about this and that? And an 80 or 100-page transcript would, once it was done, edited, and it was a lot of work, of course, combined effort, going to and back and all that. All the stories are between 15 and about 25 pages. So it's something that you can grab and read, story by story, and it can keep everyone's attention, I believe, and every story is unique. So that's about the book, and that's about me. This is the third event. We had a big launch, and there were 98 people present in Canberra, and that was really impressive. I was taken back really. This is a little 10 minutes introduction of the women who were present from the book. Last week we were invited by Romaine, who is one of the women, to Central Coast Library, and it was really fantastic. And now we are here talking about this. And just for now, I need to say that, and I'm going to steal that from one of you here. She asked me, Jules, if I may say your name. She said, and what is home? Is this home? And we said, oh no, that's our second home, like Canberra is the first home. And she said, maybe third. And she was so right, because where we were born, that's the first home. And then Canberra and Batemans Bay, we love. So you've heard a bit about each of the women. There were 4 women who could not join us then, but we did recognize them at the event as well. I really, the books are here, beautiful, white and purple. And before we go there, I would really like to answer any questions you might have. And of course, thank you so much for coming. So thank you for coming, and I'm open for questions with them.
So were you able to learn most of your English in Canberra?
Was I able to
learn most of your English?
Yes, in Canberra. Yes. And after 2 years, I started studying as well in English.
Who was that?
2 years after I arrived.
Oh, yes.
And after studying English, I had to pass the IELTS test.
Yes.
So you get the results that will qualify you to go to university.
Yes.
That's right. It was not easy.
I could see the popularity with Canberra with all those people.
Yes, they are pretty much, it is a Canberra group, because at that stage we were not really traveling anywhere. We were in Canberra, and we would meet each other, school, university, work places and all of that. And I'm so pleased that there is my former colleague actually from work. So beautiful to see. Yes, thanks for coming, Veronica.
Yes, Canberra is very popular. We spent some time there. We rather liked it too.
It is popular, but as Violetta said, on Sunday afternoon, it's changing slightly. But you go to a shopping centre, it's like everyone is closing their doors and don't know what to do.
I'm just wondering, was there any kind of common feeling amongst the different women about what helped them to feel kind of settled when they moved to a new country? I'm just thinking in the context, in the Batemans Bay area, you might be aware there's a multicultural society kind of group that's just formed, and they do annual events and things, and but how can we be more welcoming, I suppose? Did you all immediately become friends with each other because of the English, and what about outside of that circle and trying to get to know kind of more well-established people in the community, I suppose?
I really know, politicians. It's a great question. It really is a great question. And that's something that I hadn't thought of before we conducted interviews. But I didn't even consider that. Was there something I'll go to the back of your question first, to the end of your question, and it is about whether we all met at the same time. We didn't. It's the first woman, as I said in the book, Sarah, I met her in 1990, 2 months after we arrived, and herself as well. And Slobodanka is the last woman I met, and I met her in 2021. So that's every few years, you know, there is a difference between meeting different people. And as it happened, most of them are actually met through work. So maybe thinking about the multicultural, thank you for that. That's great to know. I would like to meet that group and maybe join them and, you know, become part of that group, multicultural group of women in Batemans Bay. But what I would say that probably need to learn English was something that is common, that was common. Also the feeling that we needed to belong. And every situation that there was, and I know that all of them did, women used to get to know other people. Because it was that, you know, breaking the circle of isolation and being on your own and not having friends and longing for what was, which couldn't be transplanted into their new lives. That was something that really is probably common. We really needed to become part or be part of a bigger community. There were people who would ignore us, and most of us had those common experiences of just being ignored, invisible. And there were some great experiences where we were drawn in. And there was a little anecdote that Sarah from Afghanistan says, oh well, first I became part of an Afghani group, you know, church, where they were going together, and, you know, she mixed with her compatriots. And then once she was invited to one of her friends from one of the classes or something that she attended, husband who was Australian, and they went to their party, and they said in the invitation, bring a plate. She said, oh well, okay. And it's a true story. It was more than, you know, than one person. And she said, okay, that's a bit unusual, but maybe people don't have enough plates in their house. So she did, and she didn't bring one plate, she brought 4 plates, because there were 4 of them. And then, you know, it was, but, you know, little thing, but can you imagine how embarrassed she felt? You know, it's not easy. So I hope I've answered at least a little bit.
I've heard that happen before with other people.
Oh, did you? Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a different. And I think that's something, those little jokes and experiences actually do make you belong better, because you know there are some other people who have had the same experience, and that's something maybe specific to Australia. I don't know. In other countries, do they do that? Bring a plate?
Yeah.
My long friend, he came to Australia when he was 8. His mother was Czechoslovakian, and she spoke 4 languages, but unfortunately one of them wasn't English. And she worked very hard to learn English. When he was 16, she took him to his first ball, and she said, you must have a flower. So she took him to a forest, and she said to the florist, I want that my son has a flower for his bottom hole. He was very embarrassed.
So I've got a couple of questions. One of them is a bit related to that. Most of the women you've spoken to have been in Australia for quite some time. I was wondering if you can reflect on more recent migrant arrivals, and I'm thinking particularly people who've come out of Gaza or the Ukraine, if you've got any reflections on how it's different for them to what it was for you, or if it's still really the same experience that they go through.
Well, not really in Australia, but it happened that over the past 2 years, since the war in Ukraine started, my husband and I traveled back to Serbia 3 times, and on the last time it was for several months. And my experience and our experience is that there is a lot of people who have escaped the war area on both sides. Anything that is, and pretty much young women, adults, but young women are intensively learning Serbian, for example. That's what's happening there because it's relatively close. It's just across Romania, and Ukraine is just there, more east. And there are stories that we can just hear in passing. There are no organized, that I'm aware of, societies or groups that would help them in the way that we were helped when we came to Australia over there in Serbia. And it's a new thing that is happening. And my daughter is married to a Polish guy, and they said his parents also regularly go to Poland, and they said there is a lot of people who escaped the war area.
I guess my question was more about when they come to Australia, the people who've come very recently, is their experience any different to your experience all those years ago?
Probably. My understanding is that the English classes are not as easily accessible as they were then. That's what I think.
And my other question was why you called the book An Unexpected Life.
Because it was all unexpected. As far as I go, I had my life. I completed law in Yugoslavia. I did my practical part, so I was ready to enter private practice because you had to have those special exams like bar exam here. And I had a pretty good job. And I had it all lined up. After, maybe 10 years, when my children start school or something, I'd have my own practice. It was all lined up. I started looking at, offices where I could have my little office and, all of that. And then all of a sudden, completely unexpectedly, that's what happened. For some other women, for Sarah, I know it was also unexpected, leaving Afghanistan pretty much overnight. And in her story, she talks about her family and her father, who was he was a very rich business person in Afghanistan, and so it didn't occur in the way she's a vet. Never worked as a vet because she had to do her whole exam. Again, not just exam, but the whole studies. I think that Romain had a relatively nice entry into the country, so that was a bit, whether it was unexpected for her, I'm not sure. For Edith, it was unexpected. So when we started thinking, it is just for a few of us, but when we started thinking about the title, everyone felt it was unexpected, unexpected life. And we just said, we've got the title.
The women all had a very high standard of English. They were very fluent. Were they all? Did they all have tertiary education before they came to Australia, or did they have tertiary education after they came to Australia?
Most of them. Again, good point. I didn't even think about that. Most of them did have tertiary education on arrival, and that fact actually helped all of us to more easily overcome the difficulties, because you've been through a lot already. You've studied, had to fight for your first job over there or whatever it was. You had to overcome difficulties of different types, but still. And then when they came here, I think Romaine did her PhD here, and her English was good. She learned it in Sri Lanka. But there are different challenges that she had, so that's what I'm saying. Someone had challenges about the language, someone had challenges about family, someone had, all different types of challenges. But yes, most of the people had tertiary education, now that I think about it. Yes. And interestingly, just on that point, and I think it's linked, Violetta, her story is amazing. It's really, that woman is amazing. She came from Bosnia as a real refugee. How a refugee can be a refugee, she is that. She came here and learned language. She's a professor of Italian and French. She was in Bosnia. And then when she came here, of course, she had to learn another language. And she started doing that, and her language is her skills are pretty good. However, her education or educational qualifications were not recognized here. And she didn't dare study, they needed money, so you don't go, you can't spend another 4 years without financial security, you want to buy a house, you want to do children, all that. And she tried several times as a casual in childcare centers. But she then said, after all the desperation and working casuals here and there, in one place in the morning, another place in the afternoon, and insecurity about finances and all that, she was looking through Canberra Times and she saw a big Action Buses ad. We're looking for drivers. For the past 10 years she's been driving a bus.
Oh, wonderful.
Your most elegant, most eloquent, most beautiful bus driver. I get goosebumps when I think about that. And she's so proud. She's got the makeup. Me, I'm like, oh, where's your makeup? She's got her hair done. She sits and drives a bus. Just amazing. So I don't want to reveal everything, but there are those unexpected situations and Yes.
When you studied in Canberra law, were you credited units from you didn't have to start from the beginning, did you?
Well, I did.
Oh.
I had one subject recognized, given credit for. Anyone wanting to guess? What would you think from a socialist Yugoslavia and British-based law? What would you think they would give me credit for?
History.
Good point, but no. Would be because that doesn't change.
Human rights?
Human rights, closer, warmer.
Politics.
International.
Not politics, international. Did you say that? No. No. Family law. All the subjects. Family law. Amazing. And I don't know what was the criteria. There are things like business law. Yes, it's different, but it has some basics that, or history, or I don't know what else can there be, like constitutional law. There are principles, at least, they say you've done that, you've done the thinking, you know how it works, this and that, okay, let's just do another whatever add-on. No, I had to do everything again.
I was just going to ask you, have you thought of doing a documentary on this? Or somebody from SBS or ABC? International Women's Year, all these things. I think it should be documented for all of us to see.
Kathy, yes, Kathy, yes. Thank you. I do have part of it somehow in my mind. What I'd love to do is actually get each of the women read into an audio book, their chapter.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't get an actor. Someone told me, oh, you can get an actor and read it. No, I don't want an actor to read our stories. Every one of us can actually deliver that in a form that people will understand. And I think it will be amazing. Thank you for your support. I see all the nods.
Australian government.
I know. You know what? I'll tell you. And I said at the beginning I don't want to go into a negative side. I went for a grant because, you know, it helps when government gives you a little bit of support, even if it is for editing or if it is for printing or something. So I went to the ACT government, explained to them nicely, several pages, what the project is all about, what's going to happen, how we are going to manage it, if we are not completely, illiterate and we don't know what we're doing. We know what we want to achieve. We have a book in mind and we'll do it anyway, but let's help us. Let's get your help. Twice they rejected me, and I just wasted 12 months writing grant applications. And I thought, by the time I did those grant applications, could have done editing myself or whatever it was. I mean, we were not sitting and waiting, but it was so disappointing. And then close to the launch, to this launch, maybe 4 weeks in advance before that. I wrote, first I was determined not to invite anyone from ACT government, but then I thought, okay, let's just invite people, who have something to do with women and multiculturalism. And they said, oh, they already, booked for some events or whatever on Saturday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, complete disappointment. And yes, it's going to be recorded and it will be on YouTube. Yeah, complete disappointment, yes. SBS, I wrote to ABC, they never replied, but that was ABC Canberra. Okay, anyway, I might follow up again. But SBS I haven't, and that's on my list.
Yes, there's a Vesna at SBS too, who lives down here. Her mother lives down here.
Oh, there
She's
you
a
go.
producer.
Ah,
SBS.
there we go. If you have I'll give you my details and you can send it to me. Yes, please.
Just following on, have you contacted the National Library? Because I've heard my girlfriend's father a story that was an audio recording, 3 hours, and it's held as an audio file with the National Library.
By law, I had to give a copy of that, yes, so that's sorted, yes. Yes.
The written version.
Yes, the written version, yes. But we were thinking about audio. Yeah. Look, we'll see what will happen. There is not much else that I can say about the plans, about documentary or anything like that. I think it will be great. I actually somehow had that probably delusional moment of, huge expectations. But why not? And I'm thinking, like you've got Sean McCullough. He writes a book, he gets all the headlines because he's well known and he sits here and talks like me and people come and pay a lot of money and buy his books. Well, my book is here as well, someone should. And it's not about my book, and I always call it our book and our project. And I'm aware that I'm keeping you too long, but I know. But it's not about. It's really not, this book and this project was never about profits. It was about getting those stories out there. And there was a woman whose son married a Chinese woman who has, I believe, higher education, like postgraduate degrees. And she cannot get a position. They lived in Canberra. And she would get a position as an administrative assistant at an ASO 3 or ASO 4 level, which is, in public service, there are all those grades. So she just couldn't for years get a position. It was in June, and she said, my daughter-in-law loved it, and she's rereading it. That's it. That's that. It's the success, whatever success means for those individual women, for all of us. They worked towards it and they achieved it. maybe not, I've never become a private lawyer, and that was my dream. But it doesn't matter, does it? No. But I've succeeded in doing this book, in getting those friends together. We are all friends now. They never knew each other before. All these things happen for a reason, and I think that that's a success as well. If you recognize it, then you can be happy with this. Good. Thank you so much.
Can I just mention the name, that if you're interested in that multicultural group here, it's usually coordinated through the, JJ's, the Oriental, the Asian grocery store in Batemans Bay? Jan Frickin, just at the Asian grocery store, and also the whole issue, which I think that they try and grapple with, about access to free English language classes, because it depends on visas. They do lots of advocacy for people, but I know that oftentimes they're looking for people to help doing their English language classes.
Good.
Just volunteers.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd drop that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vesna. That was fascinating. And what a wonderful conversation. It's nice to have a smaller group sometimes so you can actually have that to and fro conversation with fantastic questions from the audience. So thanks everyone for coming in this afternoon. Vesna has got some books for sale. I will be buying a couple for the library as well, so if people are interested in buying them, we'll do that. But once again, thanks again for coming to the library, and thank you, Vesna, for a fascinating afternoon.
Thank you.